It's a book which is asking the question, what does it mean to be human, but also what does it mean to be an animal? And what does it mean to be an animal that eats other animals?
Better than food, man.
Hello everyone, good morning, welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Cliff Sargent. Hope you're having a damn fine day. Great to see you, as always. Is eating meat good? If not, is there a better way to eat meat, a more humane way? Is it better to eat organic or grass-fed? Why are Americans so reluctant to use parts of the animals we slaughter that so many other cultures do? What does this all have to do with our relationship to death? These are some of the questions posed in today's book, Killing It, An Education by Camas Davis. Camas Davis is a writer and meat educator based out of Portland, Oregon, which is my old stomping grounds, the place where I went to college and grew up going to that city quite a bit. She's also a former editor at the food magazine Saveur, or Savoir as people call it. She's not a butcher per se, according to her, but she studied butchery, specifically pigs, in southwest France and has a lot of knowledge and skills, which she employs to educate students at a project she started called the Portland Meat Collective. And I actually attended a class there. That's how I heard about her. That's how I met her. This is her memoir, in part documenting the genesis of that project. It starts with her losing her job at a Portland magazine and then her long-term relationship, and then being completely broke and needing to do something radically different with her life. She drops that writing career and finds a credit card and buys a ticket to France to go and study butchery with this woman that she knows. She goes to Gascony and the surrounding area, experiencing a kind of metamorphosis, and then coming back and falling in love not only with a man, but also with a woman, while at the same time starting this ambitious meat education project. It's not a book that advocates more meat eating. Rather, it's a book that strongly suggests we should be educated and responsible for our decisions regarding what we eat and how much of it. When she was a teenager, she was a vegetarian. Culturally, we have one foot back in the second wave, as Alvin Toffler puts it in this book of his that I'm reading, and one foot in the third wave, which is the title of his book, The Third Wave by Alvin Toffler. We're entering this technological chapter in history, but we're anxious because we still need things to feel real, right? We need to feel like we're in our bodies, in the world, on planet Earth, like grounded, working with our hands, with our muscles. We still need to feel authentic. We still need our bodies to feel the real world. That's likely why there's an interest in these craft things. I'm sure you've all noticed. Rogan was discussing this on his podcast recently with a knife maker. They were talking about how people are really going for, like craft tables or craft cooking or craft this, craft that. It feels more authentic. There's this old world, you don't want to like fetishize it, but it's kind of like we're just confused because all of this is happening so quickly. I mean, listen to the Elon Musk interview on Rogan, and it's like he's worried about AI, and that's a really palpable anxiety, culturally speaking. So we have this odd kind of dynamic going on right now, where we are bringing in all of this new technology at a rapid rate, but we really want to still feel human. And there's something about the old way of doing things that makes us feel that. Interestingly, this is sort of agrarian principles, though. These are practices, this butchery and, growing things from the land and harvesting and then, having a real relationship with your food. That's more like first wave, or Toffler would say that, the second wave is more of like industrialization, industry, factories, standardization, these standard units of measurement. You can see that in schools, in prisons, in jobs, in corporations, and so on and so forth. And we're suffering a little bit from the fallout of that, especially, environmentally, but also with factory farming, which is a large part of this book, and something that Davis is very concerned with, as, I think we all are and should be. It doesn't work from a health perspective, but also just from an ethical perspective, So it's interesting that this woman who is studying butchery actually doesn't, the closer she gets to these animals, the more she butchers, if you want to call it that, the more she realizes just how awful the system is here in America, how different it is from European countries, and how, in spite of her continuing and pushing forward to educate people about meat and where it comes from and how to use all of the parts of the animal, she actually eats less of it in the process. I thought that was very interesting. The problems with factory farming are all the more apparent when Davis compares the French methods used by her mentors, the Chapelards, this family in France, and her learning of American methods upon returning. Americans, in her book, seem to think that pigs are entirely composed of bacon and pork chops. Not that there's anything wrong with bacon and pork chops, it's just that there's a lot of the pig that is not those two cuts. But if you have a public that won't use any other cuts except for those two plus sausage, and they're not willing to pay for those pigs to be raised ethically or organically, then you have to produce quite a few pigs to keep up with that demand. And those pigs are going to be bad quality, in part because they're going to be treated poorly, and also slaughtered much younger. I mean, this is complicated stuff that we don't even think about, you know? This is really not an easy solution at all. There might not be one in our lifetime, you know? It gets more complicated when she learns that organic farms can do something tricky called co-packing, where they legally sell meat from anywhere they get it. So if they run out of their good stuff, they can sell factory farm stuff and say it came from their farm. It's totally fucked up. They only have to reveal where it was slaughtered. They don't have to, it would be very difficult to trace back where the actual meat came from and how it was raised. So at least that's my understanding of it. It's a little bit complex, you know, because I'm all new to this, but I believe that's how it works in the book. If I'm incorrect, then somebody please correct me. But it's unbelievable, you know, really, really interesting stuff. So it's like, how do you trust labels? I mean, natural doesn't mean anything. I know that. Organic does mean something. There are various levels of restriction, right? Of things you need to meet in order for something to be called organic. There's also the difficulty of the way we do things here in America. As her French mentor Kate says in the book, you can't just take the recipes from one culture and apply them to the ingredients of another culture. It's not a one-to-one ratio. So there's tons of ideas that are relevant and timely in this book. I think you should absolutely check it out, even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan. You know, more power to you, whatever. But I think this is worth your time. Of course, meeting her, I knew she was extremely knowledgeable on the subject of meat and butchery, but I had no idea she was such a gifted writer. I mean, she was a writer for full-time, you know, that was her career for quite a long time. The book is equally philosophical as it is physical. It's conceptual and tactile. It's inquisitive through action. Her descriptions are satisfying. It's everything you want from the synopsis. She paints the whole picture. You know, everything you're hoping for is there. You'll learn something not only about the methods of cooking meat, a little history, some facts about French culture, if you're into that, but also factory farming, anatomy, biology, and where we are at as a culture here in America. We're not comfortable with our habits, with our nature. Death is not something we're comfortable speaking about or being reminded of. I'm speaking as, you know, an American. It's tough to say, because, you know, with industrialization and factory farming, I'm sure that contributed to the light, you know, feeding more people, you know, a larger population, longer lifespans, potentially. I'm not sure. This is all speculation. This is all coming to me right now. I don't know. I don't have the facts. I don't have any numbers backed up. I don't know. I don't know. There were 2.75 billion people in the mid-50s on the planet Earth. How many are there now? How many pigs is that we need? You know? It's unfathomable, I think would be the term. Along with a lot of good comes a lot of bad. There's no question. It's complicated. So you see, this isn't just a book about killing animals or being a cool butcher or being, you know, whatever, you know, or just hearkening back to some old tradition that has barely any place in the modern world. No, it's about much more than that. It's a book which is asking the question, what does it mean to be human, but also what does it mean to be an animal? And what does it mean to be an animal that eats other animals? They're not easy questions, and there certainly aren't any answers. And I can't just say that there's an individual, you know, it just depends on how you feel or it depends on who you are as an individual. I don't know. What does it mean to be an animal that eats other animals? The best part of the book, for me, of course, you probably guessed, would be the journey to France. Her mentors, this family of butchers, the Chapelards, they do it all. They grow the feed to feed their pigs. They work together, they share equipment. They sell at the market and they sell out of their product, which is exceptional quality. Her descriptions of food are phenomenal. There's a warm, sensual tone to the whole thing. She seems very authentic in her occasionally self-deprecating humor. There's always awkward moments when learning something new, of course, we all know that. But it's especially interesting when something new involves huge, sharp knives in a language you don't speak. We certainly can't all look cool doing something that challenging. And while, yes, it's a warm tone in the book, the darkness of the whole thing is always present and respected. There are just some exceptional passages. I'm going to read one to you right now. I don't read many new books, you know? For once I'm reviewing a new book. It's nice, right? So there I was inside the black hole again, standing in the Chapelard's cutting room, holding the two halves of a pig's brain in my palm, feeling my own brain floating in my skull, something I can't actually feel, but nevertheless, there I was feeling it somehow, thinking with my big human brain about meat and brains and evolution, about predator and prey, about the fact that because we figured out how to eat meat long ago, our brains grew big enough to make us capable of questioning the ethics of eating the very ingredient that allowed us to ask such questions. Think about that till Saturday night, as my mom used to say. Blood, bones, skin, fat, flesh, brains, meat, right? Yes, it's graphic. It doesn't shy away from the base reality, which, despite our best attempts to forget daily, we inhabit. It inspires you to become more adventurous in the kitchen. Yes, it's the type of book that Terry Gross on NPR is going to talk about. And she did. There's a great interview with Camas in the description box below. The first time she enters a slaughterhouse, you get a real feeling of dread. Upton Sinclair's The Jungle is mentioned. I'm thinking about reviewing Georges Franju's Les Sangs de Bête, which is The Blood of the Beasts, on Better Than Food film reviews. Now there's a beautiful film to make you a vegetarian. Absolutely brutal. You know, slaughterhouses used to be worse. So for me, Camas gets a lot right. The message resonates. The questions feel very important and timely. It's obviously about confronting death, sure, but just as much it's about confronting life. Taking the plunge into the void, not knowing where it's going to end up and just taking some huge risks. Going against the grain, saying fuck mediocrity, doing things the hard way because it's better. But there's also this vulnerability which is palpable in the book, you know? Trying to find and hold on to what is meaningful and real. I was really hoping she was going to write a book, and I'm thrilled that she did. She's a terrific writer. Portland, Oregon is the city of consumption. There's nowhere else in America that I found a larger concentration of exceptional food and drink. As it was the city I grew up around and lived in when I went to college, I became spoiled, insufferably spoiled. After I moved down to LA and got interested in butchery, I actually saw a YouTube video, like a tutorial of doing hog butchery by Camas at some point. I found the Portland Meat Collective and I signed up for a class taught in part by her. So back in January 2017, during this big snow up in Portland, after several hours of this pig butchery class, we sat down to dinner, tasting some of the things we'd been working on and learning about. And Camas, instead of sitting down or leading the conversation talking about something or other, was serving us wine. She was this really gracious host. She was just pouring wine and answering questions, and it was really, really pleasant. I don't know, I just thought about that. You know, it's like somebody with that much knowledge, it's not like she's foisting it upon anybody or anything. You know, it was actually just this really pleasant experience. And I wonder if that just kind of came from the whole time she spent in France. It was just this very subtle, kind gesture. I remember that. It was interesting, you know. So everybody was just sitting there while it was snowing outside around this big table after we were learning about, you know, how to butcher a pig, and everybody was just talking about food, you know. And it was this really warm, pleasant experience. And you know, she gets a lot of that through in the book, you know, her time where she was learning about this, and I think she came back and was trying to recreate something like that. I think she came back and was trying to recreate something like what she experienced over in France, and I think she's succeeding, you know. So it was great. You get the feeling that she's authentic, you know, she's not faking it. Even though she struggles with imposter syndrome once she gets a great deal of attention from the media, I believe that she is in fact the thing that she was searching for in the book, the genuine article. She's the real deal. Her French butcher mentor, Dominique Chapelard, said, "Tu seul, tu meurs," meaning you work alone, you die. We're all in this together. basically. He was referring to his family, the family of butchers on the farm working together and sharing all the work. But that applies to so much of all of this. That's what it's all about. And I think she's really trying to start that conversation. She started the conversation, clearly. I mean, it's going. There's meat collectives being started up. There's all this stuff going on. There's all this education happening, and there's clearly an interest, quite a bit of it. And I think it's great. I think she succeeded. It's better than food. So after we took this class, we were, the meat for the class that was purchased for the class, this pig, was divided up, and the students took it home. And they asked who wanted the pig head. And of course, I volunteered. Because I wanted to have a go at making pozole. And which is like, a stew, a pig head stew. So in the book, she talks about one of the first classes and hauling these giant containers of pig to store it in this cooler in this restaurant, and trying to get it out of her car. So many pounds of pig and having a hell of a time. And this was at night, So she said it was some sort of like meat mafia ordeal. That's kind of like the scene played out, dragging these huge boxes of pig body parts. Well, I was staying with my mom when I went and took this class, but she was up in Washington, so it was a while back. But I took this pig head home. I took a lot of really delicious meat home, but I did take this pig head home, and I decided to put it in this pot on my mom's stove. And she's just like looking at me like, what the hell is this kid doing? And so there's this pig head on the stove, like boiling in water for hours, I think it was. And by the end of it, it failed because this pig head was just like staring out of the pot, without the skin. So it's just a pig skull with the eyes in it and everything. And so my mom's a very patient woman, and it actually tasted really good, but we had to get rid of the skull, because we didn't really have the tools to chop open this head and like get the brain out and do all of that kind of stuff. And experiment with that. Although I would have if I could, but there's just no time. So after boiling this damn thing, we had to get rid of this pig skull. So my brother and I are like, what do we do with this? I mean, we can't throw it away here. It's just too big. We got to find a dumpster somewhere. And so we're like in the garage trying to like smash this thing down, like trying to like compress it somehow to like throw it away. Like, it's just completely morbid, like totally grisly, just like smashing this skull. And then tried to find a dumpster to like toss it in the remains and hide the body, essentially, just like cover it up and get rid of it. It was a totally similar experience, so that was funny that she mentioned that in the book. It actually was really delicious, so I say just make sure you have a big enough pot if you're going to use the head. So who should read this? Anyone who is having a 2/3 mid or quarter life crisis, for sure. If you're lost, if you're seeking direction, you ought to read about somebody who had a pretty, took a lot of risks when a lot of stuff just sort of fell out all at once. Maybe you'll find something in here that resonates. Also, anyone who has an interest in butchery, of course, but this is deeper than that, right? It's written in concise, decisive sentences, like confident cuts. Seems clearly influenced by Anthony Bourdain, who is mentioned and who Camas actually interviewed, and also maybe Hemingway and possibly the essays of Joan Didion. Fans of those three take note, for sure. If you enjoy reading essays on food, travel, butchery, meditations on life and death, all of the above, check it out. Or if you want to learn how to butcher a pig or perfect your charcuterie or whatever, then I suggest you read this and then you go sign up for one of the PMC classes. They're awesome. Now who's going to get it? For the coffee lottery. Just got a new shipment of Rwanda in. Drinking it right now. It's delicious. Coffee Lottery, for those of you who are new, is where I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video, and thank you very much. You're very, very generous. I place their names in this mason jar and I pull out a name for each review. I send a hard copy of the book out to them along with a bag of coffee, which I roast myself. And the coffee is delicious, so thank you very much to all the patrons. Thank you to all the new patrons. Thank you to all the old patrons. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for watching. You're making this all possible. I really appreciate it. So, if you'd like to get in on that, you can head to patreon.com/books are better than food or follow the link in the description box below. $5 or more will get you put into the coffee lottery. $1 or more will get you access to the patron-only reviews. And I have a really special one this month. It's an unpublished Ernest Hemingway short story in a magazine from The Strand. So if you'd like to see the review, $1 or more. If you'd like to get a chance to actually win the issue itself and have it sent to you along with some coffee, then $5 or more, and that'll get you in here. So thank you so much to all the patrons. Good luck to everyone. I think that's it. All right, here we go. This is a beautiful book, by the way. I'm happy to send this one out. Samuel. Thank you, Samuel. You will be receiving Killing It by Camas Davis and some delicious coffee. Thank you so much for all the help. Please subscribe if you have not already. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. A like on Facebook would be greatly appreciated. Always remember, die reading. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Ciao.